eventually you get absorbed in, and you are Sonic.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to our podcast, No Repeat. It's a podcast where we pick 3 songs every week with no repeats and no do-overs to create a perfect playlist for every video you're putting out on YouTube. Joining me are my co-hosts, co-creators, co-influencers, if you will. Tyler Reed.
Not only do we not pick any songs twice, Taylor also doesn't do a second take on any of his intros. He does it right every time. Hype Squad, hit the button, subscribe, smash the like, bells up, doggers, pogs in the chat, press F for respect.
And the man, the myth, the legend, Sean Evans.
See, but that's the whole deal, is that sadly this is the last No Repeat music podcast that we will actually be doing. We're changing our genre to true crime.
Oh, no, you're right.
Yeah. So, just to let everybody know, next week's episode is going to be Who Killed Kurt Cobain. We're just going to go right for it. Like, we're not going to hold anything. We're just going to do the most rock and roll whodunit.
Joe Rogan got nothing on us.
Right, that's
right after we're gonna do JFK, we're gonna solve the riddle. We're gonna figure it out.
Yes, one of the greatest mysteries of the American psyche, a riddle, in Tyler's parlance. Tyler, what are we doing here? What is this hot mess?
This week we were challenged to find the perfect song for Follow Me for More Breakfast Tips, submitted by Jesse Foltz, sort of. Jesse sort of said this in jest from the last suggestion he gave us. And I said, you know what? I'm adding it to the list, baby. We making some magic here in No Repeat. So, we just were like, you know what? Let's go for it. I don't know what this means. Let's talk about it.
My interpretation of Follow Me for More Breakfast Tips was, if I were going to be attempting a career as an internet influencer, what would the song be that I would use as like the outro on my YouTube video when you're doing like the end card and you're like, follow me, click subscribe, donate to my Patreon, send me a coffee, back my Kickstarter, buy some merch, give me any money, late capitalism.
I got a cookie book coming out and you're gonna wanna pre-order it.
Right, exactly.
Because you already watched the video.
Right.
Now get the book, which no one...
Right, exactly. And, I say this in jest, but, I do enjoy a lot of internet content, and it's important to support internet creators because they are, after all, creators. Putting internet in front of it is not a diminutive. And I have recently been getting back into the vlogging space, which is something that I was very into in the late 2000s and early 2010s and kind of its infancy, and then fell off of. And now I'm just kind of dipping my toe back in because I'm running out of stuff to watch on TV. And, there's...
Fate is a cruel mistress.
I know. And there's... And I gotta say, I've been finding some fun stuff. I found this couple, Tyler and Todd, who are building an off-grid home in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, which is very cool. It's awesome watching their progress, and they have adorable dogs that live on their property with them, which is also great. I jumped on the bandwagon and followed Tom Daly, the British diver, who makes vlogs about his diving and his son and his husband. I've been catching back up with the Green brothers, John and Hank, just kind of re-entering the internet landscapes that make me feel happy, and trying to ingest that stuff instead of depressing news about global warming in Afghanistan and all of the horrible shit that's going on. But in doing all of that, I have definitely realized some of the templates that this kind of content has. And so I was glad to do this challenge because it got me to kind of unpack that and be like, what is the perfect song for shilling your livelihood on the internet? But what about you guys?
So I'll go ahead and follow up on that because mine was pretty similar. I also kind of took this as sort of an intro, outro, end card sort of theme song. Except for as opposed to Taylor, who's consuming a lot of content of like normal people being like, hey, what? I'm doing whatever today. Like, I feel like they're very much like YouTubers first, or they're sort of like more about like sort of like a lifestyle or like an aesthetic. Whereas like I'm coming in from the food perspective, coming from like two different angles, whereas like, you know, I started to get on the BA train when it was really taking off, and then immediately it dissolved, and then sort of like all the different channels kind of like split into different areas, and so everyone kind of went into their own little area and kind of like sort of found their niche in a way. You know, I've been a binging with Babish fan for years, but also what's really funny is that surprisingly, a lot of like the gaming content I've consumed, people have in some way like sort of like transitioned a little bit into food stuff. Like one of my favorites, his name is Brutal Moose, in which he usually did like old like just like PC games, and he is just completely like transferred into like watching like old VHS tapes, and he's like, I'm gonna try to cook these like Hungry Man meals, and I'm gonna like just eat them and see what I think about them, and like making stuff, and sort of like it's a very much like a very like, these don't sound like exciting videos, but what's kind of fun about them is that he's very good at video editing, so it will be like this sort of like just like constantly edited footage in there, and it's very absurdist, and it always has like a sort of like vintage vibe to it. And so just in general, I'm kind of imagining a sort of more like wackadoo, sort of like more like gaming space, sort of like YouTuber doing like a food video where it's like, let's try the best Dunkaroos.
I am a big student of the food documentary. So this challenge and the next challenge have just really tapped into my expertise, sort of, in a weird way. I did this inductively this time, which is kind of strange for me. I usually just find something that I think that I like that fits and do it. Spoiler alert. But this time I wanted to do something different. So I got up and I watched a bunch of breakfast documentaries after I made breakfast. So I was in the headspace of that to kind of understand what I should be doing. And I realized that one of the things that I really like is dramatic food documentaries. Like Hero Dreams of Sushi. That's one of my all-time favorite food documentaries.
Not breakfast, though. But yeah.
Right.
And incredible.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, it's like sushi should not be that dramatic. It shouldn't be. It is. Now that you watch the movie and you're just like, artistry at its finest. You know, this is what it's all about. But it's not goofy. It's very serious. And I was like, if I had a food channel and watching some of the YouTube breakfast ones, I was like, you can really go over the top here. Because I feel like breakfast is one of those oddly controversial meals. We talked about this. We have a whole podcast about this. About 100 or so episodes of it. And talking about how I don't like brunch. I already have I have feelings about it. Opinions even. Comments maybe.
Sean's the people's champion. And brunch is the bourgeoisie. It's fine.
After 10:30, it's going to lunch. That's where I'm at. But still. So I wanted to, and like one of the videos that I found I thought was really interesting was somebody who was explaining that American breakfast is like dessert, and how he did like international breakfast is. Maybe you've seen it. I don't know how. I didn't go deep down the rabbit hole, but I thought that was really interesting, and I was thinking like, okay. But if I was going to take the food that he was making and do it myself and soundtrack it, what was I going to pick? And it was going to be something dramatic. Because I think it's a little bit sexier when it's not a playful song for me. I just find it more attractive. It's more arty. That inspires me when I look at cooking. It's like taking it to the limit. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, I feel like we were definitely on opposite ends of the spectrum here. And I appreciate the kind of stuff that you're talking about. I do love a good, intense food documentary, like something like Chef's Table on Netflix. Ugh, so good. But I think part of the reason that I've been like leaning back into this like lifestyle vlog thing is I'm kind of like, well, partially I'm preparing to defend a master's thesis, and so I have very little space in my brain. But then the other part of it is like, I just want things that go down smooth right now. And I do feel like even the tensest food documentaries. Like, there's not a lot of stakes usually. I mean, pun intended. Like
Iron Chef, baby.
Yeah,
Only stakes.
Even on Iron Chef, it's like nobody's gonna die, you know. But it's still a little too intense for my headspace right now, and so I really just wanted to be like light and playful and kind of goofy. But I totally get where you're coming from. I was a little bit nervous about your pick, but now that you explained it, I feel better about it.
I mean, it could just be a sort of anti-pop interpretation of what our chales are doing.
It is also interesting, though, that the like social media food fluencer space doesn't have those kinds of things right now, at least that I've seen, like the super intense culinary type of content. It's all very like, here's 3 easy meals you can make with your family.
I mean, that is kind of like a direct response.
Which is good, because those are the things I can actually cook. But, you know.
Yeah, that sort of is a response, actually, because I did listen to the Reply All, like, BA, like, documentary before they kind of took that down. But it was about, like, the entire premise of, like, Bon Appetit was almost, like, their, like, transition was to kind of make it, like, for everyone to cook. Which is, like, not, like, a bad thing. But, I mean, that obviously came with a lot of baggage in and of itself. But yeah, I do feel like the food space has gotten like more like fun, because I feel like when we were growing up in like high school, it was like Cutthroat Kitchen, it was sort of like lots of like competition food, so it felt like very serious, and you're like, what was it, like Gordon Ramsay just as a figure like makes like food not feel very fun. It makes it feel like it's like, oh, I don't want to mess up. It's like, yeah, I mean, it don't matter that much. like you're rough chop, baby. You could rough chop it however you want. No rules, just right.
On that cringy note,
someone out there just started dying laughing at that joke, and I salute you. Here's to you.
Well, I don't know. How do we want to start? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
All right, Sean, bring the intensity. Turn up the flames. Bring the heat.
All right. Yeah, okay. So this week, I chose Stuk, composed by Johan Johansson and performed by Echo Collective. Bonus part of my song is, in just the clip that you heard, you've already heard a quarter of it, and probably almost 100% of it, honestly, because it's just repeating string quartet. That's what it is. It's supposed to be a background track for somebody making probably some beautiful, inspired breakfast with fresh things, and it's magical and dramatic. So when I was looking through stuff and I was thinking about what I wanted my soundtrack for my breakfast video to be like for me to give tips, because the tip is not so much like somebody speaking, it's more so like a 2 or 3 minute clip of somebody doing something, but you see what they're doing, right? Like you see the temperature on the griddle, you see what the griddle is, you see like it's more of something that you observe and you're conscious for like the 2 or 3 minutes that you're watching it. It's not supposed to be like an instructional video. That's kind of the beauty of it. Like, I'm going to keep going to Hero Dreams of Sushi because it's one of my favorite cooking documentaries of all time. Sorry, I said it before, and again, here it is.
You know what, Sean? Keep saying it.
Right.
Great documentary. Don't be ashamed.
So, the one thing that I do like about this is it feels very Radioheady to me. Like it's a little sad, it's a little dramatic, but I feel like when you wake up in the morning, you don't want like rah rah shish boom bah kind of thing. You're like, it's elegant, it's poetic, it's slow starting, it's maybe a little sad. Maybe you don't want to get up in the morning, you just want to lay there in bed, but now maybe it's something beautiful, it's something that you love. Maybe you're making breakfast for somebody that you care about, or kicking your day off the right way, getting in the right headspace. That's what I want in a soundtrack. And I feel like for what little bit I have to say about this song, it's because it just is the right amount for me.
So I dug into this a little tiny bit. Johan Johansson was an Icelandic composer. He was primarily known for making ambient and like music for orchestral ensembles. He did some film work. Perhaps his most iconic work is the score for Arrival, which, if you have seen, is an excellent film that uses music very effectively. He unfortunately died of a drug overdose in 2018. And so this recording was actually done as a tribute to him shortly after his death. It's a piece that he had composed earlier in his career. It's a really interesting choice, knowing your context now, that you're going for a more like professional, like skillful approach, showing like, you know, true mastery in the kitchen. I think this works really well because there's something like, I don't want to say like trance inducing, but it has a very like simple, repetitive, plaintive feel to it that I think sounds like how it feels to be in your element at something. Like I feel like watching a chef in their kitchen with their tools, like doing what they know how to do. This feels like that flow state to me. And I think that's really cool. It definitely works in that sense. It's going to fit in real weird on our playlist. But, I mean, this playlist is already super weird, so who cares?
It's real weird, buddy. Actually, have either of you worked in food service in any like kind of capacity?
Yes.
Only briefly, like maybe for a period of like 6 months.
I guess probably by that account, then I've probably worked in food service probably the most. I've worked in actually most of my adult working life. Oh no. Anyway, but Taylor noting on the sort of the flow state definitely like hits home, and I sort of almost feel like transported to like that space because in I feel like when you're doing your best work, or it doesn't necessarily even have to be food, but this is gonna be anything that you really feel like there's a certain level where you kind of stop actively thinking and you're just sort of doing, and it's just sort of like everything just kind of makes sense, and you're just sort of like clear and focused on your goal. And as someone that has kind of like ADHD undiagnosed, you know, I do feel like a lot of time it is hard for me to sort of get into that flow state, but like you saying that out loud really sort of like took me to that place of thinking about being like knowing what I'm doing and sort of really like just kind of doing, not really thinking too much. And I think that's a really good a good thing to sort of like think about when you're listening to the song, because there is something about sort of like the repetition and the repetitive motion of whatever you're doing anyway, because most of the time cooking is really sort of you're repeating certain actions over and over again, and you know exactly what you're doing because you've done it at times, you've trained for this. And I do feel like there is a sort of artistry, I think, in breakfast. I feel like egg is probably like the biggest spot because there's like definitely like things you can do with that. There's a lot of room for like variation and sort of like technique that really is really incredible to behold. Like there's like definitely like techniques where you do a really thin egg and you like starting to twirl it with like chopsticks, and it like sort of makes like this like swirled like form, or you know, like even doing like a really like big sort of like omelet for like a omu rice, and what you do is you cut it and it sort of like folds out onto the rice, and it's just this beautiful sort of like golden, like sort of like silky smooth like egg. So like I could definitely see the artistry like in the breakfast space. I do feel like a lot of it is sort of like you're like hash bacon. You're like, it's not, you know, they're sort of blood force objects for a reason, because I do feel like most people are like breakfast. I'm too tired for that. So yeah, so I feel like, that being said, I do feel like this is, I was not sure how this was gonna go either when Sean put this in, but I think this is a great minimalist classical piece that I think really excels in sort of like the idea that you had going. I think it's a good pair.
Yeah. Well, there's two things that I think I just want to add off of what you guys said. One, I really, to what Tyler said about it being like methodical or maybe even robotic, but not in a bad way. That like, that's one thing that I really love about watching documentaries about food, is that these people are so good it's inspiring, but it's also deceiving because when I watch them, I tend to believe like I can do something like that. Like I can do that. That's not that hard. But really, it's like they're so good, they're so professional that there has to be a seriousness involved with it because it seems so not serious. It's like watching a professional athlete or Monday morning quarterbacking or something that like you don't really. It's hard for me. I can't speak to everybody. It's hard for me to expand my imagination in a way to accept the level of expertise that people would have about something that I perceive as simple. And I constantly find myself kind of searching out these blind spots and seeing like, oh, there it is. Like, yeah, no, you like what Tyler said about the egg and the chopsticks. Good luck.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah, you could do that. But even with like what would be really menial service jobs, and Tyler will know this, like getting the consistency of a product across the chain to be that good, Chipotle. Like you don't want to have, you would like to be the excellent Chipotle, but you don't want to be the not good Chipotle, right? Like you don't want to do that. And I forgot what I was going to say for the second one. Contemporary classical. What an interesting genre.
Lots of cool stuff happening in that space. People, I think, are intimidated by classical music. It's very easy in a lot of ways to just like hop on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever platform of choice and just go listen to like whatever the top new released contemporary classical album is. There's always something interesting going on in that world.
I thought it was a lot more approachable than I was expecting, because I think in my mind, when we think about classical music and the traditional canon of it, it's like Bach and Beethoven and complicated, and you're supposed to have feelings about it, and maybe you don't, so then you feel like you're stupid. It's like going to an art museum. You're like, wait, this doesn't make me feel like anything. But I think there's a lot of stuff out there that can grip you that's more contemporary, and I'm happy that I did this because that kind of got me into that space. I don't know if I'll be returning to new classical anytime soon, but it was fun to explore there for a little bit this morning.
Just one more thing. If you're thinking about classical music, The Planets by Gustav Holst, probably not a bad place to start if you're thinking about classical. It's very thematic and very exciting and very engaging.
On Billy Joe Armstrong, we should talk about contemporary rock albums that have classical music interludes in them.
It sounds like a great topic for our Patreon exclusive podcast. Give us just $1 a month and you get an extra episode of the show every month. On to the next, though. If it's all right with Tyler, I will go next.
Sure, you do whatever you want.
All right, this week I chose Let Me Know by Surfaces.
Gotta let me know, gotta let me know. You gotta let me know. You gotta let me know, gotta let me know. 'Cause I don't wanna let you go. Oh, lay back, loosen up, one shot, looking up, need you on the cuff. Never felt so hard in love. Take me, never leave. This could be so heavenly. Malibu to Beverly. I can't help but think.
Surfaces is a pop, hip-hop, soul, R&B fusion act from College Station, Texas. They had a lot of viral success last summer with their single Sunday Best, which was pretty TikTok famous. And they're clearly trying to recapture the magic with their new record that came out this summer. I think all of this music that I've heard from them, it is interesting without being offensive to anyone, which is what I think makes it perfect for this kind of challenge. Like, you could strip the vocals out of this and use it. You could use it with the vocals. Like, it is this kind of, like, mildly trendy alternative pop that I feel like I hear all over TV commercials and, like, TikTok and everything right now. And I could see this kind of, like, stop-start samba beat at the end card of a YouTube video where I'm like, hey, if you like this video, subscribe to my Patreon and click that like and hit the bell and get the notifications and do all the things. And I'm just like rattling off the litany of plugs over this kind of chill, like hand clappy samba beat. And the thing is, that's what I kind of love about it. Like, it is not groundbreaking at all, but it's just kind of good background music. And I was rolling around listening to this while I was like going to the grocery store today. Like, I get the appeal. Walking through Kroger with this on loop, you're vibing. It doesn't really need to be about anything. It's just kind of fun.
It's a juicy track. It's a juicy track.
Juicy, that's a new one. Okay.
It's got lots of nice layers in there. It definitely feels like one of those like and subscribe it has a very like new kind of food tips thing, right? Like it's not what I picked at all. This episode's going to be really interesting for that because I feel like we kind of have some different vibes going on here, and I like this song a lot. I think this is a great song to do breakfast tips to. It's funny that you and I are both like on the video sphere of tracking. I think the only part about this song that I do not like that much is the second verse is a little, I don't know.
Yeah, they do kind of a beat switch up that I just don't think lands.
It's not like the greatest lyrically. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't like ruin the song. It's just not. It doesn't have the same flow as everything else.
Yeah, I get what they were trying to do. I just don't think. I think they already had enough going on here. They didn't need to throw in that whole like change up.
Yeah. Okay, I do like that part though. At 136, there's a false stop, and fans of No Doubt and fans of this show who no doubt know that I like No Doubt and know that I love.
No doubt they know that he likes No Doubt.
The false stop without a doubt. And then I like the little funk guitar riff that they have in a lot of their songs. There's another one that just came on, Good Day. It's got some nice like neo soul kind of feeling to it. I appreciate this. This is good listening music.
I feel like my biggest like gripe with the song is that it uses the early 2000s like sound. I feel like that's like it's like in like a. I feel like it's maybe not from a different song, but it reminds me of like that time period, and it really like. But as we all said, I think it's a simple, easy. Don't think too much about a track. I think this is great. I think it's great as an outro. I think it's great as an intro. I think it's got a hype. Like I said, it's got a TikTok moment, but this is a YouTube video. But I still think it's chill enough, but it's got enough going on that it's like, it's hype, but it's not too hype. You kind of noted on some more of the more like traditional sort of elements in this song, like a sort of like a samba kind of beat, it's got like a little like nice, like sort of like classical piano kind of sound, combined with like a nice like trap beat that's like not too much.
This is the perfect.
I'm kind of here nor there on like their like vocal delivery, the sort of like I don't know what kind of vibe they're bringing to it, but it's like a little like cheesy for me, but maybe that's the point. They're on the beach, they're hanging out, they're having a good time. How can you complain?
It's the perfect ad for a Bud Light seltzer commercial. Like, is it hip enough to drink on the beach? Yeah. Is it a little ironic enough to drink on the beach? Also, yeah.
Yeah, this band is going to sell a lot of consumer goods.
But we did have that challenge.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm totally buying my next pair of headphones to this song.
Yeah. Slick and sexy, I like it. Cool.
All right, Tyler, that just leaves you. What do you got?
And now the opposite. This week I chose Quiet Keyboard by Eyeliner. I've talked about Eyeliner before, sort of a vaporwave pioneer, explorer of old sounds and making them new. This comes off their 2020 album Drop Shadow, which I have just been devouring in 2021. It is so much like a combination of like pure moods, like albums and the Eyewitness intro every time. Like it just like so familiar but so different. And Quiet Keyboard is sort of like the sort of a closer on this album. And I think what really draws me to this one is that, and actually, maybe to this whole album in general, is that I feel like it does a lot of like sort of like theme and variations. I think there's like a main sort of like key line here in the song, like a main like sort of melody. And then I feel like it spends the whole song sort of like varying on that and sort of playing with it. And I feel like that's really good for making it memorable. So people are like, they associate that with your channel. I feel like it's just hype enough to, sort of kind of get you through, the outro, to say your little monologue. There's no words, so you can just say whatever you want. All right, like, comment, subscribe, smash that bell, and we'll see you next time. I feel, and then it like ramps up, and, it gets you just a little that synthy bass, little like sort of like celestial piano. I don't even know. A little, it's just kind of a nice little groovy, understated track that I just dig a lot. Oh, here it comes! Here it comes! It's time! We already knew,
Listeners,
folks.
It's
Folks,
happening. Sean's putting on the hater shades.
All right, boys.
Go ahead, rip him a new one.
Okay, this is a Billy You song, and I love that about it.
Great. That's all I needed to hear. You can say whatever you want now.
This is what I really dislike about this, and it's very obvious that this song was written on one MIDI keyboard, and it's so tacky. It's the tackiest song that I think we've had on this show in a long time.
Perfect.
It's like,
I love it.
I don't know. The positive one I have is like, this is a fantastic wake up morning song. But after that, it really kind of just, there's not much for me here. It's very flat. It's kind of just
Quiet keyboard, Sean. It's not a loud keyboard. It's not a.
It's just a keyboard. That's the thing that hurts me about it. It's just a keyboard of like stereotypical sounds. I don't know. Does it work for the challenge? Of course it does. Is it a great pick for your video? Of course it does. But it doesn't stand up by itself, and I kind of feel like I need to listen to more of their music because you said you're really into this album. Like, does everything sound like this?
I mean, sort of. To be fair, we've talked about this artist before. This is way back from Dude's Brunch because I picked Toy Dog as one of my favorite songs of whatever summer it was, which is from another album, and you also didn't like it then. So I'm glad that nothing's changed.
See, another song just came on. What is it? Drop Shadow 2 just came on, and it kind of reminds me of M83. Oh man, what was that? What was M83's album with the meatball in front of it?
Junk.
Yeah, which ironically wasn't Junk.
You listen to the title, you listen to the first track, Los Angeles, and then you tell me what you think. I think that's probably my favorite.
Okay, all right. Because I don't want to give up hope on it, but I'm not, how do I say this? I'm in love with it, but I'm not in love with it.
Sure. I do feel like, in a way, it's sort of intentionally utilizing, like, a lot of, like, music and, like, sort of, like, just video and general, like, kind of, like, if you think about, like, the 90s, like, I actually watched, like, a little bit, like, a small, like, documentary on, like, the Legend of Zelda, like, Ocarina of Time, like, soundtrack and how that was composed, where they just took literal, like, exotic sounds and, like, just mixed it up. And spread it out or like smushed it together to make like the sounds for that soundtrack. And I feel like a lot of people were just sort of messing with like these sort of like generic sounds and kind of making it their own during that time period. And I feel like this person is now taking all those ideas and then making them new out of the older. I mean, you could say whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, this definitely is like vaporwave at its vaporwavest, right? Like, it is postmodern music for a postmodern era, boy. There was this series of videos, I don't remember where it existed, but it was like retro social media was the gimmick, and so they were recreating social media apps as like Apple II programs and like Windows 3.1 programs, and they had like the software narrator who was like, then you can get on the line and connect to your friends on Facebook. And it had like this kind of music in the background. And I feel like that could be like a fun aesthetic to do here, where it's like tasty videos, but if they were made in like 1995, like you're making Kool-Aid in a solo cup with the squiggly lines on it. Like, just lean totally into this like retro nostalgia. Like, I don't even know that it needs to be cringe so much as it's just like, there's been this new trend on TikTok of people like cosplaying or doing like makeup reveals or whatever as various decades.
Oh, that makes me upset. I've seen some of those.
And I think that's kind of where this is. It's like, and now we're going to recreate popular recipes from the 90s, which is a thing I guess you could do. People would probably pay for that. As far as the song itself, I'm kind of with Sean. I don't think it does a whole lot. I know that's not really the point of it. So like I respect it for what it's trying to do. It's just what it's trying to do doesn't do much for me.
Boo!
That's okay.
Also, I cannot believe that you just posted that link in the... It is so eyewitness. It's not even... I totally wasn't even sure what this show was called. And as soon as I put it on and I saw the first clip, I was like, oh my god. Gotta get that synth pan flute in there. All right, Taylor's telling us to move on. So with that, it's time for B-sides. You got them. You know you want to share them. Anybody got some hot tips for some good B-sides?
Look, I can't decide if I love this song or hate this song. Vintage by Blue to Tiger. It is quite cringe, but it's very catchy, and I am very mixed on it. Also, Patio by George Moir, I think is how you say that, and Rocky by Still Woozy, the only good song on the Still Woozy record, don't at me.
Orinoco Flow by Anya.
Sail away, sail away, sail away.
Return to Innocence by Enigma. Anything from Pure Moods. I'm picking it. I feel like I just had to go absurd because it already was an absurd topic to begin with. I just was like, I'm going off the rails, baby. Which, by the way, Sean is crying laughing right now, so...
Tyler just posted like 2 videos from YouTube in the chat while we're making this recording, and I can tell you, I totally understand what he was going for now. Like, in my mind, I was thinking, like, this is a YouTube thing, but Tyler is soundtracking for an Adult Swim special. That's all nostalgia all the time. Like, his song is perfect. His song meets the challenge better than mine and Taylor's. It just meets it. And the thing is, once he explained it to me now through these videos, I totally get it. It's not a great song, but it totally checks every box. So with that, I don't really have any B-sides that I remember because I went through a lot of contemporary classical and kind of did what I felt was there. But if you want to, the playlist that I looked on at Spotify was contemporary classical. If you're interested in what I might have been listening to, if you go up and down through there, you'll basically see what it is. But I can't tell you anybody in particular. Sorry.
It's okay, it's like jazz. There's a lot of people, and they're doing a lot of things.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of good stuff. This was just the best one for it.
All right, well, with that said, Tyler, people want to learn how to cook the perfect omelet. Where can they get tips from you?
Hey, everybody. If you want to get some hot and fresh, right out the oven, breakfast tips from me, you head to rudepets.club. And as always, Rude Pets Club on Instagram and Twitter. Thanks so much.
Sean, if people want to perfect their crepe flipping technique, where can they get pointers from you?
Air compressor, pro tip. But you can also find me on Instagram at TallySean.
And if you want to debate the perfect method for cooking bacon, I am open to ideas on Twitter at TC Olmstead. All of these songs will be on the official No Repeat podcast playlist, which is available on Apple Music and Spotify. And you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/NoRepeatPod. You can follow us on the social medias at NoRepeatPod. You should subscribe to the show, leave a review, 5 stars, comment, etc., etc. And we'll be back next week with another episode of No Repeat.